Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowered for Change channel. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Deborah Gilbert White, also known as Dr. D, your host. And here we celebrate and encourage people who are and who seek to make a difference in the world. We also explore and seek to better understand how one's life's journey can prepare you for your life's purpose. And as you enter, we would ask that you put your name and say hello in the chat so that we will know who's here with us as we move forward. Okay, today we are welcoming um, Chloe Greene, vision holder and chief love sower at Sowing Love. And I want to say hello, Chloe. Welcome.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. And what we're going to do now, just want to bring you into the room as far as, sharing with people your short bio, and we will move forward with that now. Let's see if I can make this, trying to see if I can get you clearer on here on the, okay, one second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll go ahead now. Chloe Greene, vision holder and chief love sower, Sowing Love. Chloe identifies as a Black woman, uses she, her pronouns, and is Southern rooted. Chloe is a racial justice consultant, liberation historian, and love practitioner with almost 15 years of experience working alongside communities and organizations to develop and implement equitable and just policies, strategies, and practices. In 2021, she founded Sowing Love, where she supports people, organizations, and communities to return to love as a practice for collective belonging and shared abundance. Before launching Sowing Love, Chloe served as the first equity, diversity, and inclusion associate in the history of ABT Global. She recently completed work supporting Oakland, California, in developing a homelessness encampment resolution process that is people centered and rooted in racial justice, and is now supporting the Fund for Housing and Opportunities, also known as FHO, inaugural Community Advisors Program, working alongside advisors with lived experience of housing instability and homelessness to help FHO create an inclusive and impactful philanthropic, um, philanthropic ecosystem. Chloe's approaches center Black liberatory pedagogies along with love centered practices to advocate for work that is reparative and centers thriving and belonging for all. And so we say, welcome to you, Chloe.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I'm going to see if I can remove this. I'm trying to remove this comment here, but we'll see what happens here.
Okay.
I think it's covering your face, and I want people to see. Okay, okay, we'll see. It looks like it's moved. Okay. Um, as I was reflecting on how we had first connected, I realized it was approximately 3 years ago and involved the technical assistance work we both were doing with the HUD Coordinated Entry Equity Initiative team. Um, you have continued to do work in various capacities related to housing and homelessness. What brought you to that work or to change work? And when did you know that you could make a difference?
Mm. Yeah, I actually came to that work right out of grad school. So I went to the Ohio State. My daddy always says, never leave off the the.
Right.
And I did a dual master's in African American and African Studies and City and Regional Planning. And at the time, I was planning to start my own business, and it was going to be a co op really centered on youth and just supporting youth in their development. And
Mm-hmm.
There were just some things that were happening with my family, really some tragic things actually. One of my cousins passed away that really led me to pause. Like it was a moment in time in my life where I just needed to sit and be still.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in a space where I could start something. And so I ended up applying to jobs, and I was hired to be a coordinated entry system specialist for the Ohio Balance of State, which essentially means I was tasked with homeless systems planning for 80 of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio. And even though we had talked about housing a lot in my city and regional planning program, this was really my first, like it was my entryway into the work. And it was um a trial by fire, like quick learning process for
Mm-hmm.
me. And it I really ended up valuing being able to have that experience, because I think prior to that time, people experiencing homelessness were people as a child that I always wanted to support. I always wanted to help, but I didn't have a really sound understanding of the root causes of homelessness. Like
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really understand before grad school and before working for the Ohio Balance of State that a lot of this is rooted in racial inequities and uh, the fact that there just isn't enough affordable housing, but also that if we if we did the right thing,
Yeah.
um, there would be enough affordable housing because the resources exist. They're there. And the deeper I got into the work, I think I wanted to support people in understanding that and understanding really what's possible, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a space where I think a lot of conversations about housing and homelessness are centered in scarcity, like
Yeah.
sort of thinking about what does HUD provide and conversations about that not being enough versus what are the real resources that are at our disposal beyond HUD. What
Mm-hmm.
should we be demanding of HUD? And um, how do we really help people to understand that one, everyone deserves access
Mm-hmm.
to a home that is safe, that is affordable, where they can live with dignity and
Mm-hmm.
feel held and know deep care, but also that we have the resources, particularly in this country, to make that possible. And so, even though I sort of um, ended up in the work by chance, I stayed in the work for several years because I wanted to plant those seeds and to help
Mm-hmm.
people understand that this is really something that we can resolve.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the approach that you have is one of knowing that there are enough resources out there for everyone to have a right to housing, to have the housing that is needed. And I do agree with you that there is this narrative about scarcity that prevents many people from seeing that reality. And so I just appreciate the way you frame that and the work that you are doing connected to housing and homelessness. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I in the
Go
work
ahead.
we did together on it, like in terms of what you said, 3 years.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh.
Oh, I know, I know.
Yeah, we had there was a special that was a special moment that existed um,
Hmm.
in the federal technical assistance space that may never exist in that way again. And it was a beautiful thing to be able to come together and really support communities and understanding that, as we said, it's possible. Like ending homelessness is
Yes.
possible, but that also, if we're going to do that, we have to lead with the people with lived experience, and we have to address the root causes of homelessness, and the
Hmm.
solutions that we come up with have to really meet people's needs and be able to meet people where they are and to meet people with care. And I don't, prior to that, that wasn't the overarching message that was being delivered from HUD, and technical assistance providers who felt that and knew that didn't really have the space to articulate that before that
Mhm.
moment that we all shared around the equity initiative and other things that were
Yes.
happening. And while those things, those initiatives no longer remain, the connections obviously are still here. And there are still people who are committed to doing things the right way
Mhm.
and um, continue to move forward and lead the work in the way that it should, even though the federal government at this moment in time
Mhm.
is encouraging people to do the exact opposite of what we know works.
Right, right. And I'm so glad that our paths did cross. In fact, my first experience with TA work was through that initiative. And so, it's so true. Many of the people, the first thing I loved about it was the diversity of the people that were involved in it, the
Yeah,
different backgrounds, racial, different type of social identities that really encouraged me to want to be a part of it. We had some dynamic people, and I think you were so right. That was like a snapshot in time that we may never see
it
again for
was.
this effort. But what remains with me, it was hopeful work, and it continues to build that hope in me, and I hear it in you as well, that we can do this. We can
Yeah,
do this.
yeah, we can do this. Yes, for sure.
Okay, so what is Sowing Love, and what propelled you to get it started? I think you talked a little bit about it, and talking about some of your background, but let's talk about Sowing Love.
Yes. So sewing love really starts with my childhood. Like
Hmm.
I was a child that was always really interested and consumed by balance and fairness and what was just. Like my parents will tell you that I was consistently always saying, "Well, that's not fair. Well, that doesn't seem fair. Well, that don't seem right." Like I was just very concerned with those things. And I also remember my dad is a retired Air Force colonel, so we moved around a lot.
Hmm.
But the reason why I say I am Southern rooted is because both of my parents are from South Carolina, and the vast majority of my family lives there. And
Hmm.
anytime that we could go home, we did. And I also went to the University of South Carolina, lived in South Carolina for some time when I was a kid. And so it very much so has a lot to do with who I am
Hmm.
as a person. But I remember when we would visit, and I would oftentimes look around at like where my mama was from and where my daddy was from. And I would think to myself, like, these are beautiful places. I love Georgetown, South Carolina. I love Greenwood, South Carolina. But
Hmm.
why do they look different than the communities that we live in when we go back home? Like when, we go back to the base and when we go back to Northern Virginia, like, why does it look different? And also like people that looked like me, it seemed didn't have a lot of opportunities. So as a child, at a very young age, I started to just notice these things and wonder why, but
Hmm.
also feeling like it wasn't right and that things should be different. And my parents also told me that I was very loving when I was young. They were like,
When you were
close,
young.
they were like, girl, it's going to be interesting for you.
Oh
I just have always been a person that um, believes that love is really important. Like I
Lord.
don't feel like um, love to me is the only thing that exists in life that isn't like man made. And
Hmm.
so it is so pure, it's so foundational, it is so critical, it's so necessary. And I can't see a world like when I dream and imagine about liberation, about collective freedom and abundance and belonging and true thriving, like where everybody gets to
Hmm.
be well. I cannot conceive of that happening without love. And so as I got older and sort of moved beyond my curiosity of why do things look and feel different, which I learned was injustice and oppression,
Hmm.
I committed myself to racial equity work. And I'm still committed to that work. But I found myself as I got older also feeling like I needed to uh, be talking about something that could reach all aspects of oppression and injustice. Like, what is the thing that helps us to undo all evil? What is the thing that helps us to correct all injustice and
Yes.
end all forms of oppression? And love is that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that a lot of my work is about really understanding who your guides are so that
Mm-hmm.
you can be, again, rooted in that. And for me, Bell Hooks and Octavia Butler are significant guides in my
Yes.
Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. I read that book and I was just like mind blown. Like I was like, one, I was like, how did like the prophecies in
Mm-hmm.
that book, but also just her understanding of the things that we needed to really be paying attention to, the things that we needed to see were slowly but surely going to be our undoing. And what would liberate us from that is a commitment to change, being in community, being grounded and centered in love, I believe is a part of her message. And then Bell Hooks, her book, All About Love. I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I was like, Belle left, like, and I read it maybe a few years before she transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
So even though she was still living, it felt like she had left seeds in that book for me to carry forward. Like I was like, this was planted here for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so those Belle and Octavia together are really the foundation of Sowing Love, which is, the sower,
Mm-hmm.
sowing,
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
love coming together. And they gave me, I think, the beginning of a framework that supports me in explaining what I've always believed since I was
Mm-hmm.
a child, that love is a practice. You feel good,
Mm-hmm.
you feel love, but love requires action.
Mm-hmm.
It is only when we are moving through love and everything that we do is guided by love that we get to a place where we can all be well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what Sowing Love is about, reminding us of that and also reminding us that we are like inherently loving beings. I really do believe that
Mm-hmm.
everyone comes into this world as a loving person.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in societies, though, that teach us that love is not the answer. And when
Right.
you live in that, then you tend to forget, based
Mm-hmm.
on like conditioning, that how like important love is. But I believe that no matter how far away you get from love, because there are some people out here who they far.
Yeah. We won't mention no names at this point.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah.
are far. They are all up in the
Far
unloving.
removed. Far
Yes,
removed.
but I still believe that even those people can return to love if they so
Mm-hmm.
choose, if they commit themselves to, loving action, then their hearts and their minds and their souls can also be restored. And so that's what the work of Sowing Love is about.
I thank you for sharing that. I do believe I've heard throughout my life that love is an action word. And so,
Hmm.
it's something that we have to practice, that we have to show. You have to show
Yeah,
love. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it's a feeling, but you got to show it's the action word. Um, you kind of explain what it means, and but what does it look like? What does it look like to center love as a practice, and the collective belonging and shared abundance? What does that look like for us?
Yeah. So two things came to mind when you said, what does
Hmm.
it look like? Like,
Hmm.
what is the vision? I think the ultimate vision of like what life looks like when we are rooted in love, but also I think the process, because as we oftentimes talked about in the initiative, like the
Hmm.
outcome matters, but the process, right, the path and the journey that you take to get there is
Mhm.
equally, and in some ways even more important than the outcome.
Mhm.
And so for me, I'll say the outcome, what I oftentimes can see is just and feel is like people just feeling like held and knowing that across every identity that they hold, there is
Mhm.
room and space for them. And that it's not like you're going to be tolerated. It's like you are appreciated, you are valued,
Yes.
and that we are existing together in a way that honors our shared humanity. Because I also think that we forget that lovelessness, oppression leads us to forget that we are intimately connected to each other.
Mhm.
And what is happening to one is happening to all of us, even if you can't really acknowledge that. That's something that's life. We are interconnected, interdependent beings. That's how
Yeah.
we are we're designed. And
Mhm.
so I feel like when we're living in love, we're living in a true acknowledgement of that fact, and also an acknowledgement that we're in a relationship with the natural world too.
Mhm.
And we begin to understand that in many ways, the oppression and injustices that we inflict on one another, we also inflict on other living beings.
Mhm.
We are destroying each other and destroying the world that we exist in. And so I feel that it also looks like understanding the earth as a precious being that also is deserving of care, that also should be tended to, because it tends to us and takes
Yes.
care of us. And up to this point has been tolerating our foolishness,
So true. So
but
true.
only for so long. Like,
Mhm.
the earth is sort of kind of sick of us. So we got to get it together. And so I think that it looks like that. And it also looks like communities where, people get to be surrounded by beauty. Everyone knows
Mhm.
beauty. Beauty is important in life, I believe, because
Yes.
it, it, it helps you to dream, to know what's possible. And
Mhm.
everyone should have access to that. And everyone should feel safe. Everyone should feel cared for, respected,
Mhm.
and everyone should be able to participate in building the world. Like there are so many people who are not given the opportunity to participate in that presently and how we exist as
Mhm.
our society, but also many societies across the globe. And I think that when love is at the center, then everyone really gets to live out their full potential. And
Mhm.
there's so many people who presently, never get that opportunity because we're too busy tearing each other apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the process for that is, like we've been saying, it really is about the action. And I think that's easier said than done.
Right.
It sounds simple, but is not. Because when I think for it's sort of, you could look at it like any habit. When you're building any habit, sometimes it sounds easy, like, oh, I'm gonna start going to bed at,
Mhm.
10:30. And that's a practice that I'm going to implement. And you're like, I can do that. Like, it's just me going to bed earlier. But you're
Mhm.
not taking into account that that means, like, oh, my favorite show don't go off until 11. You have to
Right.
make a sacrifice, or your body has to be retrained to
Uh-huh.
go to bed earlier, or you may have to do some additional practices to support
Mhm.
yourself in, like, being able to do that, or then have to have like a bedtime ritual to support you
Yes. Yeah.
to bed at 10:30. And
Mhm.
love being practiced is the same thing. So again, like, yes, I believe we are all inherently loving beings, but if you were turning to love as a practice, that's work.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
work. And you have to it requires a commitment and a devotion to the practice.
Mhm.
And so I think it looks like really thinking to yourself, because we work with 6 components of love at Sowing Love, which are rooted in the components that Bell Hooks shared in all of
Mhm.
love, which are care, commitment, trust, respect, knowledge, and responsibility. And so you then have to ask yourself, like, we have defined those things for ourselves at Sowing Love, but you
Mm-hmm.
have your own personal definitions of what that looks like. And then also thinking to yourself, okay, now that I've defined that and that's a core belief of mine, now how do I put those things into practice? Like, how do I
Mm-hmm.
practice care for
Mm-hmm.
myself, but also for other people? How do I practice respect
Yes.
of myself, but also for other people? How do I practice trusting
Mm-hmm.
myself, but also other people? Like that, these are that's lifelong work, but it's worthy and necessary work, I believe.
You're preaching. You're preaching because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the first thing that came to my mind is what love's got to do with it. What love got to do with it? That the answer to that question that Tina asked, and sang
Yeah,
about, you
yeah,
know, and you sharing it has a lot to do with it.
everything.
Has everything to do with it. And then I'm thinking about, how, for me, I'm thinking, how does that really begin with self-love?
Mm,
Self-love and then move into community. And so I can see the practices and the principles that you shared, you know, looking different, somewhat different for individual, self-love, and then for community love, but
yes.
coming to the same, So I read where you said something about this is deep soul work. This
Mm.
is deep soul work. And so and sharing this philosophy and sharing your work with others, how hard has this deep soul work been for
Deborah, uh-oh.
for individuals and communities?
Oh, yeah. So I will say, because yes. So sowing love in many ways, as you shared, I started sowing love in 2021, so 4 years
Mhm.
ago. But at that time, I was still doing a lot of the housing and homelessness work, and I was bringing these approaches into that work.
Okay.
But just now getting to a place where it's like I'm fully into the sowing love offerings,
Mhm.
and I will say that when it was existing in the housing and homelessness space, and this is work that I believe is intended to exist everywhere because love needs to be everywhere. But
Yes.
specifically in that space, I think it's hard for people to even some people to wrap their heads around like love needing to be in discussion in like organizations and in communities.
Mhm.
And for others, I think they're accepting, but they're like, okay, and this starts at like care has been a helpful entry point for a lot
Mhm.
of people because I think there's already a lot of discussion in our society around care and the importance of self care.
Mhm.
But what I try to support people in doing with the self care workshops that I do, the self care and collective care workshops, is
Mhm.
reframing our understanding of self care. Because I think our society, so much of what we are encouraged to do is rooted in like consumerism and materialism.
Mhm.
And like, oh, something's wrong, buy something. Like, if you buy it, you'll
So
be better. And like, how do we remove like this notion that you should have to buy something in order to have access to care? Like
mhm.
everybody, regardless of material means, should have access to care. Like that's just something that all of us should have. And so
Yes.
how do we get back to the basics of ensuring that we are being cared for? And so, just things like, have you had water today?
Mhm.
That's care. Are you sleeping and sleeping well? That's care. Are
Mhm.
you finding moments for joy? That's care. And I have found, in terms of your question around like how are these things landing for people, I feel like people are always like, yes, yes, yes. But then when it's like, okay, so let's get to the practice, people are like, wait, wait.
A
Like,
different.
Like I want to do this. So using care as an example, like I want to do
Mhm.
all those things, but Chloe, I'm a caring and nurturing person. And so I don't have time to care for myself. And so I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of barriers
Yeah.
in place for people around a lot of the things that I talk about. And
Mhm.
that's okay. Like, I myself have a lot of barriers. Like self care for me is also very hard because
Mhm.
I am just constantly thinking about like, what do other people need? Like, how do I ensure, how do I
Yeah.
support other people? And so I can wholly empathize, but I think it's important for all of us to understand that we are vessels
Mhm.
and all of us are intended, we are here for a specific reason. And if your vessel is empty, then ultimately what you're here for and all the support and love you want to provide, you won't have it. So even if your motivation needs to be in service to what you can do for other people,
Mhm.
there's still in that an acknowledgement that you must care for yourself in order to
Mhm.
sustain, in order to keep going. But I also try to help people to understand too that it's like you are worthy and deserving of care just as you are. You don't have to do another thing, like,
Mhm.
you know. And so I think a lot of it for others and for myself is unlearning a lot of the lovelessness that we've all been taught to believe and um, relearning and returning to the practices that really allow us to access love in its greatest and purest and most life-giving form. You
Yeah.
know, love that's rooted in abundance. Because I think
Mhm.
even the challenges and the barriers sort of go back to what we were talking about earlier around scarcity mindsets.
Mhm.
Like I think people are just like, okay, but if I give to these people, then obviously there isn't going to be enough for me. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
you can give to others and give to yourself.
Right. Right.
There's enough. There's enough. There's
In
enough.
fact, it's better when you give to
Yes,
yourself and give to others as
yes,
well. Yeah.
yes.
When I first, one of the conversations that we had during the TA time, you talked about napping and the nap ministries. First time I ever heard that
Uh,
um, came from you. And so I see that as part of the self care. Is that part of what you do in Sowing Love? Is that something that's practiced?
yes, yes, for sure. So,
Hmm.
that ministry is Trisha Hersey's work. It's incredible work. And
Hmm.
I definitely encourage people and talk about the importance of rest. I also talk about the importance of slowing down
Hmm.
and um, really helping us to understand that slowing down just generally in life is so important that ultimately if we really think about why we're busy, oftentimes the things that we are busy doing are in service to capitalism and to like this notion that we have to always be going 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 and be producing something.
Hmm.
It keeps you from really being in deep and intentional relationship with yourself, and slowing down supports you in rebuilding and restoring a relationship with yourself and with others, because when you slow down, like there are so many times where I have to remind myself like, okay, Chloe, slow down, let's just sit
Hmm.
for a second, let's just be still. And when I'm still, I'm able to like pick up on, subtle movements. I'm able to see the trees, gliding in the wind. And I'm
Yes.
reminded of like the beauty of life. I'm reminded of what life really is about.
Yes.
And then I can be like, okay, what do I really need in this moment in time? And was that thing that I was sort of busying myself with even that important? Is there something else that I can do that is more joyful, that is
Mm.
life giving, particularly during these times? I share love practices on Instagram and TikTok, and the one for this past week was to rejoice.
To
And
rejoice. Yeah.
it means I like to look at definitions, and it means to cause joy. and cause or experience joy.
Mm-hmm.
That means we have an intimate relationship with joy. Like this is something that we just know how to do. And we
Mm-hmm.
should never forget that. And so it's only when we slow down, though, that these things come back to us, that we remember what really matters, that we remember who we really are, we
Mm-hmm.
remember our connection. We don't get there without slowing down. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a part of the work for sure.
I just thank you for all that you just shared because I have seen that personally in my own life of
Mm-hmm.
needing to slow down, but also needing to be able to say no, which is part of slowing
Yes.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Being able to take time, and do things that are not so routine as they used to be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and knowing that I can take care of myself in those ways that matter for me,
Right.
and not worry or think about what other people are thinking or saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a process to get there because, as you said before, we've been conditioned to think a certain way. You got to be doing, 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 busy,
Yes.
busy, busy, busy. Like I decided to get off the hamster wheel.
Right.
I,
Right.
I decided to get off the. I made a conscious effort to get off the hamster wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying is more people need to hear it. I'm glad that what you're doing with sowing love is going to be helpful to a lot of people and probably already is helpful to a lot of people. Um,
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate
it's just
that.
so important, and especially for younger people as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned and we've been conditioned. We have to go back and unlearn some things. But maybe if this is something that can be taught, you know, in
Early on, right?
early, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so young people don't have to go through some of the things that we are now unlearning
Mm-hmm.
and paying with our health and other things for.
Yeah. Or even being like for young people to be affirmed in the things that they know. Because I
Yeah.
think that for me, when I think about how I existed as a child and
Mm-hmm.
even just other young people, like if you think back to like when you were 5,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, there were some kids that were a little like bullyish, but the vast majority of us were like understood the importance of like play and were like enjoy and like
Mm-hmm.
simple things like and just I think if more young people were affirmed in those really innate, natural, beautiful gifts that we have, like to keep doing those things,
Mm-hmm.
then it wouldn't require so much unlearning as they got older. Like I
Yeah.
find a lot of people wanting to return to a lot of the practices and things that they had as a kid. Because, like, as a kid, you were still, in my opinion, still pretty, had your loveness
Yeah.
intact
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was as you got older that you were conditioned that this thing that you fundamentally are is not it is not meant for this world. And so
Mm-hmm.
how do we condition you to be meant for this world? And I think if more young people were affirmed to be who they are,
Mm-hmm.
then we would also be better off.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not be shamed
Yeah.
for seeing things differently.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you with that. You refer to yourself as a liberation historian. Please share more about that and the role it plays in the work that you do.
Yes. So I consider myself a liberation historian. Um, History has always been really important in my life. I always just loved history when I was a kid. I studied history in college.
Mhm.
And it is because for me, I think it is so important to understand your history so you can like it has helped me to understand myself
Mhm.
and also other people when I can understand what has happened in the past and also see how the past informs the present. And if
Yes.
you don't pay attention, has the ability to continue to inform the future in ways that we don't want it to. Like history,
Amen.
oftentimes I feel gives us the tools to know some of the things to avoid and also know some of the things that will keep help us to sustain ourselves and know some of the practices and tools to build anew. And
Mm-hmm.
history has so much richness in it. And I
Yes.
like how I was talking about with Belle and her book, like I believe that there's so many seeds that were planted in the past that are waiting to be unearthed, whether it be seeds of like, y'all, this is
Mm-hmm.
this is what can happen if you keep going down this path, or
Mm-hmm.
of this is how you nourish yourself in the midst of chaos. This is how you still find joy when there's madness around you. This is how you seek freedom for yourself and others. Like
Mm-hmm.
history has so much of that. There's so much, so many gems. And so I specifically call myself a liberation historian because my study of history is rooted in liberation. Like when
Yes.
I am looking back, I am constantly looking for the seeds that help us to liberate ourselves and others. And
Mm-hmm.
so much of that for me has been rooted in the Black freedom movement.
Yes.
And there's so much wisdom, even around love. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Bell said that there isn't really uh, a freedom movement that has existed in the world that isn't rooted in love.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so much richness for us to uncover that can help us to rebuild with love at the center when we look at history. And
Mm-hmm.
particularly, I think once we get to a place where we can really understand that we all have something meaningful to contribute, that the Black freedom movement in particular, there's so much there that helps us to understand life. Like
Mm-hmm.
like a life struggle is an intimate part of it's a part of life. Like that is what
Mm-hmm.
life is. And the Black freedom movement helps us to understand how to navigate through struggle and to still be loving beings.
Yes.
Um, and I believe that there is so much there that is so important. And so as a liberation historian, I'm always going back, particularly
Mm-hmm.
to the Black freedom movement that still continues, but the things
Mm-hmm.
in the past, to really be like, what are the gems that they would want us to know, that they would want us to call on in this time,
Mm-hmm.
that they would want us to practice, even
Right.
the things that they would just want us to root and ground ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my practice as a liberation historian.
Well, thank you for that because it is so key to what you're doing, and also so key
Yes,
to to what we need to learn in the Sowing Love network that you're developing. You got a
yes,
course that you what's called Preparing for Love.
yes.
So has the course started yet, or is it something that's in the works? Or
It has. It launched August 8th. I'm
okay.
very excited about it. It is a self-paced course, so people can purchase the course, take
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, on their at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
And that was important to me because, again, I believe that this is work that is deep soul work that requires a lot out of us. And
Mm-hmm.
for people who may be feeling like they really need some deep, like intentional time with this, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted people to have that time. So that's why I made it self paced so people can go at whatever pace they need to help them to really think through these love practices and the things that I'm talking about in a really intentional way. There's
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of reflection, meditation, a lot of practices woven into the course that do require like time.
Yeah.
There's also some joy, a lot of joyful things. Like it's, I don't want people to feel like, you take the course and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna be working.
I know.
It's like there's work and a lot of joy and a lot of gems and a lot of goodness in
Mhm.
it, I believe. But I wanted people to have the time to go through that at their own pace. But there will also be a community, the Sowing
Mhm.
Love community that people can join after they have completed the course. because I also wanted to provide people with that, again, a space for community, for
Yes.
love-minded people, and love-centered people to be able to get together and support each other, and really just continue in our learning together.
Hmm.
So that's what the Sowing Love community space will be for. But the course people take on their own. Um,
Hmm.
for all of my work, I have a tiered approach because I use an economic justice model. It's called the Green Bottle Framework to
Okay.
support people in paying what they can based on available resources. So the
Hmm.
course is offered at three tier levels. The first one is intended to be the most affordable for people who need that option. The second
Hmm.
one is the standard price. And the third one is like, if you just, got money to blow out here, you should pay the third tier.
Because you can afford it.
Can't afford it, so pay it. But we also have scholarship options for people if that is needed, because I would
Mhm.
never want someone to not be able to take this course if they wanted to do so. And so it's really, I called it preparing for love with intention, because again, I
Mhm.
feel like even though this is something, we are loving beings, returning to love is requires deep practice. And when you are practicing anything and committing to something again, you got to prepare yourself.
Yes.
And so that's what this course is about. It's about giving you the foundational steps, the building blocks to give you a
Mhm.
solid foundation to then move forward with your love practice. And I would never want to keep anyone from
Mhm.
that material that supports them in doing that. So that is the course. I'm very excited about it.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited about the approach that you have. It's such a loving approach. You know
Thank
that
you.
no one, everyone can be included. You come, where you fit in, where you fit in.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so there's no excuse for someone not to be able to participate in this self growth and empowering um, work. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, my final question to you, Chloe, is there a question I did not ask that you would like to answer?
I don't think so, Deborah. You asked lovely questions.
Okay. Well, I have to say that you have been a lovely guest, and I'm just have a lot to chew on with this. And I'm going to, when we put up the final video for this, I will put in the information for people to go to your website, to learn more about your course and to connect with you. So we'll get that from you later on. But also, I want to ask people, who are coming to us in the future to look at this video, that you subscribe to our channel, that you like, our presentations and share. And so that we can continue to grow this channel and also to have very exciting and knowledgeable guests like Chloe Greene to come in and to share what they are doing to make a difference in the world. And so, Chloe, I want to thank you for being here with us this evening. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And I look forward to seeing you in community.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much for having me. This was a gift. It was a pleasure. And I also look forward to seeing you. It's always good
Yeah,
to hang out with you. So I'm
thank you.
grateful for this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.